Welcome to Fast Politics, you guys.
It's great to be here. We're excited.
So we have the team behind the No Kings March and numerous other things. So sort of explain what you do at Indivisible and a little bit about how you got into this.
Absolutely. Well, at Indivisible, we work with a grassroots movement that is led by regular people all over the country who have decided that they need to get involved and they need to do something. We got started in 2016, shortly after Donald Trump was elected the first time. Ezra and I, we are married. We are former congressional staffers. We were absolutely furious with everything that was happening, and we decided to take all the knowledge that we had as former congressional staffers, turn it inside out, and make it available to folks around the country so that they could organize effectively to get together locally and pressure their elected officials to push back against Trump and Trumpism. That was the basic idea. We wrote a Google Doc guide to how to do that. It went viral. Suddenly, we were working with thousands of local hubs for community activism all over the country who were calling themselves Indivisible groups, which was the title of the guide. And we have been on a journey with those folks all over the country ever since.
I remember seeing that Google Doc. Ezra, do you have anything else you want to add here in this?
Oh, that Google Doc was spread around like wildfire, and we started getting all this incoming from all around the country, and it all said the exact same thing, which is this guide is full of typos. And so one thing I recommend to anybody, if you got a lesson from this, it's if you put something on the internet and then people read it, they will let you know the problems that they have with it.
Yeah, this is a phenomenon that I know all too well. Yes, continue.
Well, but then the other thing they did, they started forming these local groups, and it's just been a real honor to be part of this grassroots movement of normal, everyday people, nurses and IT technicians and lawyers and teachers who are out there organizing in their home turf. I mean, this is what we need. Democracy is a participatory sport. Leah, you often say politics is too important to be left to the politicians. I think that's right. We're facing a democracy crisis right now, and we can't engage as consumers alone. We've got to engage as active participants. That's how we actually change things.
I spent a lot of time thinking about why Trump 2.0 is significantly scarier than Trump 1.0. You guys interface with a lot of people in the base who are activists or mostly normal people who want to make their voices heard. Is it more people than last time, and are they more agitated?
It is more people than last time. We are seeing kind of a rate of ongoing formation of new local indivisible groups that wildly outpaces what we saw in 2017. The kinds of mass mobilizations that we are seeing are taking place at a scale that dwarfs a lot of what we saw in 2017, 2018. I'll just give you one quick example.
Please do. Yeah.
The single largest same-day mass mobilization that was called for nationally in the first Trump term were the Families Belong Together marches to protest separation in 2018. Those were incredible. There were about 750 around the country. This year, we saw with Hands Off about 1,300 events and rallies around the country. With No Kings in June, 2,100. We are heading into 2,500 all over the country.
Wow.
Reach into really rural, really red areas that might not have previously had much in the way of visible, progressive, pro-democracy organizing. So I would say that what we're seeing is a really extraordinary and massive groundswell. And what has been so different about this time compared to 2017 is not necessarily how regular people have responded. It has been the total collapse of elite institutions, elected officials, and leaders who are ostensibly supposed to hold up some corner of the fight for democracy and have simply declined to do so.
Ezra, do you have thoughts about that? I think that's totally right, but I'm curious if you want to add anything.
Well, Leah is the real thought leader of this duo. So I just parrot what she says, but in a louder, more confident white male voice.
We'd love to see it.
So I agree with all that, but just to give a sense, I grew up in rural Texas, Hays County, Texas. There were 3 No Kings Day events in rural Hays County, Texas.
Wow.
We're in Burns, Oregon. That's population 2,700. We're in Bryson City, North Carolina, population 1,500. There are going to be big events in Washington, D.C. and New York City and Chicago, and that's going to be awesome. But 2,500 events, just to underline what Leah said in my white male voice, that's incredible. That is incredible. I mean, this is a historic level of peaceful protest that we have not seen in modern American history. The need for that is so great, exactly for the reason Leah said. This isn't just Congress failing us yet again. This isn't just Donald Trump being an idiot and an asshole like he always is. This is an authoritarian breakthrough moment. And that means more than just your elected officials. It means media institutions and news organizations and law firms and universities who are being bullied and need to understand there's countervailing force out there, that this moment that we're in is temporary and that it will be replaced by an era of reform and accountability. And you better get your ass on the right side of history. Otherwise, your reputation is going to be permanently damaged.
God, I think about that all the time because my grandfather was jailed by the House on Un-American Activities during the McCarthy era. And like, if anything, we are in a new, a sort of a moment of backlash to backlash to backlash. So what is so clearly immoral in this moment is going to be very clearly immoral to everyone in about 5 minutes. So it's shocking to me that we're even seeing universities think about making deals with this guy.
Look, ICE is already terrorizing communities around the country, and the money flowing into it has just started to flow. $171 billion flooding into a secret police force. You think that's going to look better as the months tick by? You think that's going to look better when all of the Proud Boys are on the federal payroll? No, you have a choice. Get on the right side of history now. Otherwise, look, new leaders are going to come to the forefront, and you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I think that's really true. If you're listening to this and you're wondering what you can do, talk us through what that looks like, what the options are there.
Well, first and foremost, we're going to tell you to come out to protest with us on Saturday. You are probably pretty close to your nearest No Kings event. In fact, pretty much no matter where you are, wherever you are in the country, you are pretty close to a No Kings event. So find your event, get your American flags, get ready, go on out and be in community with that big group of people who are collectively coming out and fighting for democracy. But we also want that to be the beginning, not the end, right? Like we want people to be finding their local home for organized activism, for getting involved, for pushing back within your community, organizing, whether that's to support immigrants who are under attack, whether that's mutual aid for people whose livelihoods are being harmed by the Trump cuts, whether that is getting involved in elections and helping to push back in an electoral way. It's going to take all of us collectively, as kind of a massive symphony of defiance, pushing back against this administration. And the best way to get that started is to get involved with a local organizing home.
So one of the things that we're seeing a lot of is that Republicans are really freaked out by these protests. And their message is that this is Antifa, that this is not okay, that this is so... Talk us through some of these talking points and why you think they're so agitated about those.
They're such utter bullshit. You almost have to take it as a compliment, Molly, right? Like,
Right.
first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. We're one step from winning, Molly. They're fighting now, and they don't know how to do it. They are terrified of peaceful protest. And that's true of authoritarian regimes all over the world, right? The Trump attacks on our states, on our communities, on our government, that doesn't come from a place of strength. This guy's unpopular. He's a lame dunk president. He's on the way out. He's worried that his grip on power has a time limitation on it, and the time is ticking. And so he's lashing out. Authoritarians want you to feel alone. And so this promise that the largest peaceful protest in modern American history is coming together this weekend is terrifying. And so they're trying to attack it. They can't even say no kings. If you watch their talking points, if you listen to them, they can't even say the words no kings because they know how unobjectionable that would be. So they make up some other words about it. So I mainly thank them for the free publicity. And then on a serious note, they're trying to gin up some fear. They're trying to disincentivize people from exercising their First Amendment rights. And so what we do in response to that is we train people on de-escalation. We train people on safety. We make sure every single one of these events has a safety lead and a safety plan. And every single interview you see us do, you will see us emphasizing the nonviolence, peaceful nature of this. This is us protecting our constitutional rights. And that's it. And that's enough. That's enough to be impactful, and it's enough to make it important, and it's enough to scare the bejesus out of the Republicans in Congress and the members of this regime who would like to see those rights go away.
I agree with all that, and I would also just add, I think we're also seeing that they understand that they have gotten themselves into a pretty uncomfortable position on this shutdown, that they are, the American people are blaming them for keeping the government shut down rather than giving folks health care. And they are kind of just desperately casting around for any message that will take the heat off of them. So I think we've got to see this as both, sinister in that it is trying to create the permission structure for the Stephen Miller fueled crackdown, but also a sign of the desperation of a party that recognizes that it has gotten itself into a pretty uncomfortable position and that people are blaming it for the pain that its cuts are causing.
Explain what is happening in Portland and why the costumes. Can you explain that to us? Why people are dressing up in costumes and a little bit about that the way that works exactly.
Absolutely. Portland Frog. We've all seen Portland Frog, right? So here's what we understand about Donald Trump and Stephen Miller. They are trying to create the visuals. They are trying to create the stories that will justify further violent crackdowns on dissent and on blue cities and states. And that is part of their overall playbook, that they are trying to, generate the excuses necessary to escalate further. And so, you know, a classic part of how you respond to authoritarians, how you respond to attempted repression, is with humor that exposes the kind of fundamental contradictions of what they are doing. And that is what we've seen folks doing in Portland, right? The first person shows up with a frog costume. Suddenly there are inflatable costumes all over the place. It's pretty hard if you are Stephen Miller to say, we got to double our National Guard presence in Portland because there are a bunch of inflatable frogs walking around outside, right? It really kind of lets the air out of the cycle of misinformation and posing as the excuse for the next round of escalations. And so I think it's part of a broader tradition of leaning into humor to expose what an authoritarian is actually trying to do and to avoid falling into the traps that they are setting. And I hope to see a lot of frog costumes out for No Kings protests on Saturday.
It's also, look, I think this is brilliant as a strategy, and it's so organic and it just came together. But in addition to, Leah, your point that they don't want to be ridiculed, the other thing is they want you to be scared to participate in these protests.
Right.
And if you went out for Hands Off or for May Day or for No Kings One, what you saw was joy. You saw people having a good freaking time. They were dancing, they were laughing, there were funny signs, they were making fun of Trump and the regime, they were meeting new people. It was a scene, and you wanted to be part of that. So one of the things I would ask for anybody thinking of going to their first protest on Saturday is have a good time. Bring some friends out. Pump up your march with fun music, get some dancing going on, make it a place where people want to be. This has got to be a popular movement for democracy. And look, we're doing serious stuff. We're saving democracy. We're fighting against the fascists. Yes, that's real and that's serious. But if this is a place where people don't feel welcome, where people don't feel like it's a fun place to be, it's not going to become the mass movement that we need it to be. So by all means, get that inflatable costume out there. Like, we want more of that, because then people are going to want to show up.
And there's also part of this is the hilarious music, right? Because the Trump administration wants it to, like, there was sort of a Benny Hill music situation. And part of that is they want optics that look like these protesters are scary, right?
That's right. One of my favorite things was seeing a guy with a big tuba following around the right-wing
Right.
person, just making it absolutely ridiculous. Or the people in D.C. I saw following around the members of ICE or the National Guard playing the Star Wars Darth Vader music. I think there are untapped veins of creativity here that folks should explore, get creative, make this real. This is not just being manufactured in some kind of top-down way. It's legit. It's grassroots. The inflatable cartoon characters came out in Portland. Let's see what comes out in Austin or Minneapolis or Storm Lake, Iowa. I'm curious.
I would love you guys to explain what it does to have huge protests. Like, explain why they're so nervous about it.
Absolutely. I will say I think it's a few different things. The first is just quite literally it disrupts a certain chilling effect that they are trying to have take root in America, right? So much of their playbook is about creating fear so that people preemptively obey. It is about having everyone sort of think, oh, I had better fall in line and doing it. And if they do that, then you don't even have to like roll out the full repression agenda. People have already fallen in line. And that's what we've seen with a bunch of businesses. That's what we've seen with a bunch of
Billionaires.
yeah, exactly. And it doesn't work as well when it comes to regular people. And so a large mass protest in a period where a would-be fascist is trying to consolidate control is a very visible demonstration that we will not be falling in line, that we are actually going to disrupt that cycle of anticipatory obedience. So that's one big piece. The second is, if we're going to get out of this, we are going to have so many people do things that the regime does not want them to do, and so many people not do things that the regime wants them to do. It's going to look like 1,000 different forms of defiance. It looks like stuff like, organizing to push back on some of those law firms that have complied with Trump. It looks like college students and alumni pushing back on their universities. It looks like people in their jobs saying, "Hey, I think that's an illegal order," or "Hey, I'm not going to do that. You're going to have to fire me if you want me to do it." For people to do that kind of stuff, they need to feel like they are part of a movement. They need to feel like it's more than just me taking an action on my own. They need to understand that there are millions of other people who are each kind of grabbing their thread and pulling at the same time. And so a big event like this is actually part of how we form that mass identity of whatever I'm doing, whether I'm, raising my hand at a PTA meeting and saying, "Hey, what are we doing to protect students from ICE?" or whether I'm, trying to organize within my workplace. Whatever I'm doing, I'm part of something much bigger. And so that risk that I'm taking, other people are taking that risk with me. And then the third is it's a mechanism for getting people more involved. As I was talking about earlier, you really want people to come out to these events, but also to stay involved in a local organizing home that helps them take more action and more escalated action, right? We want people to be coming out to a protest, but then we also want them to be showing up at a town hall and talking to their local elected representatives. We want them to be joining consumer boycotts like the push to get Disney to put Kimmel back on the air. We
Right.
want them to be organizing in their house of worship and in their school and in whatever venues they actually have. And so in order to do that, we actually have to have that local infrastructure and we have to have people plugged in. And so we really want to make sure that when people come out, we get them engaged in a way that's ongoing.
That's really important. When people push back on Kimmel, it was humongous. And it made me wonder if the numbers are bigger than we think they are because of the sort of siloed media infrastructure. You guys are interfacing with these groups. And I mean, I know you don't have a mechanism for sort of counting the numbers, but those Kimmel numbers were big. And I just wonder what your sort of sense is for this Saturday. And then I know you shouldn't ask people to guess stuff like this or predict the future, but I'm just curious.
Look, from our own perspective, we've been in this wave moment that's lasted 10 months now. We still have 5 to 8 new Indivisible groups forming every single day, Molly, every single day. We've doubled the number of Indivisible groups this year. We've quadrupled our own membership. We keep it on expecting it to die down, and it doesn't. It just doesn't. More and more people are coming and organizing. Shout out to Patsy in Hatboro, Pennsylvania, a town of 8,000 that just formed Hatboro Indivisible. Welcome to the movement. That's what it looks like. And so I think what we saw with Kimmel was an incredible case study in how this can actually push back against authoritarianism. And I think the smart way this movement develops going forward beyond No Kings is looking for those opportunities where the regime threatens an institution, the institution buckles. It is very clear that they buckled. There is a clear target who cares that the mass movement of pro-democracy folks around the country don't like that. Those folks have an action item. They carry out that action item, and then there's a response. I don't know who the next Disney's going to be, but I can tell you the way this regime is lashing out, there's going to be another one. And the good thing about Disney, Kimmel's back on the air, but the better thing about Disney is all these other media institutions saw that and said, oh shit, I don't want that to happen to me. You don't actually have to fight every single fight. You do need to win some high profile ones like that. And so we're looking out for the next opportunities. I think that's where it's going to go. And I think there is going to be another institution that finds itself on the wrong side of this and quickly shifts over. And that is just going to fuel the movement more and more. So what is this weekend going to look like? It's going to look like the biggest peaceful protest in modern American history, I guarantee you.
Wow. That's very cool. Stay safe, stay peaceful. What's the call to action?
Go to nokings.org and find your local event for this Saturday and show up. Bring your friends, bring your family, bring your funny signs and your frog costumes. We want it all.
Thank you guys so much for joining.
Thanks for having us, Molly. Great talking.